brief examples. So while preparing this nano-course, I was going to emphasize that intelligence is a tool of fast adaptation. But then one evening, I realized that actually viruses and bacteria managed to become dominant biomass even without self-reflection. So necessity of intelligence is an open philosophical question. Nevertheless, for big organisms, it's the only way to go. And such view on any type of intelligence answers the question when to use it. So use it whenever all future states of environment and data points are not known in advance. AI is inspired by biological intelligence, and that is why, maybe in some romantic impulse, we are projecting our feelings and thoughts into future machine abilities. And that might confuse realistic expectations because the only general intelligence so far is natural intelligence. And it appeared under certain circumstances as necessity of survival. So in order to host general intelligence, one should be bothered about own survival and replication in any type of environment, and second, be able to abstract up to the level of self-awareness. Machines, in contrast, don't care about such replication and self-awareness that allows them to be specialized, altruistic, and high performance at the same time. Still, both types of intelligence share major processes. First one is ability to learn, and second one is ability to create based on learning outcomes. So you can see all artificial intelligence algorithms falling into two groups, learning group and then reasoning or prediction or categorization group. Also, both intelligence systems share the same basic computational unit, which is neuron or perceptron in terms of computer science. Neuron is a physical thing, and perceptron is really oversimplified logical model. And that's actually not so bad, because now we don't have to deal with several limitations of biological neural system, such as, for example, limits of signal transmission speed, and so on. So actually, how neuron or perceptron work. So if you would imagine that there is a thumb neuron that is responsible for example, dogs recognition. And when it receives bark on voice dendrite, and then it receives like wagging tail on tail dendrite, and then fur on hair dendrite, and coming from our sensors, then it computes weighted sum of all inputs and says whether it was dog to all consequent neurons. So that units react to stimuli coming through the dendrites and attune it to fire output axon if received particular combination as the input. Of course, it's oversimplified model, still very valid for general understanding. So as you can see, actually single neuron is a polynomial which is wrapped in a scaling function, and it acts as a binary classifier. So the basic fundamentals of this computational unit. Neural networks, in turn, are distributed sets of interconnected neurons. And as long as there are many neurons, this group can not only say yes or no to particular input, but also approximate any given finite function. And deep neural networks just had more hidden units, and that is it. Actually, intuition behind them is pretty simple. As there are more summoneds in this network, it can approximate function better and with high precision. So that is it. Supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learnings are three main approaches to train the systems, and then, of course, to solve particular groups of tasks. It's very important to see them as separate, maybe even non-competing groups of algorithms, which solve different groups of challenges. So when we would like to categorize our, for example, images into predefined categories, and when we can label some significant training set to provide an example, then supervised learning is a way to go. When we would like to extract some features and we don't know all possible categories in advance, then we can use unsupervised learning. Reinforcement learning, in turn, is all about adaptation to the changing environment. Learning algorithms treat itself as an agent which acts in changing environment, and it should make several steps and receive some reward, positive or negative, after doing those steps. So, and of course, the most prominent application of the reinforcement learning is robotics. As you might see, AI works pretty well for all the challenges where people might become bored pretty fast due to many semi-similar monotonous tasks or documents to process, or when there are too many details to take into account. So now let me go through the example of sci.AI, which is actually going to bring some fun to the research process. And we're creating the system that tries to restore biological process out of disjoint facts in different papers, so that it reveals process as it is to the biologist. And scientists can use it either in upstream experiment design or in downstream analysis of the results of the in vitro or in vivo experiments. So the system consists of NLP, or natural language processing, and reasoning components. And key step here is finding relationships that complement each other. And it is done by learning vector representation of each phrase and document to identify which of them are similar and may belong to the same process. As long as initial publications are plain and the structured sources of the relationships, sci.AI NLP component creates structured representation of the publication. That means labeling of particular bioentities and their relationships. So in result, it reduces variability and ambiguity issue in bioterminology. Possible outputs are RDF XML JATs as well as HTML plus RDF-A files formats. So when the technology will be adopted by publishers, for example, other scientists or technological companies will also be able to use it directly, jump into their own algorithms, for example, of in silico drug design, or maybe some supervised learning, and so on and so forth. We in turn use it for formal reasoning through the knowledge graph in order to construct the biological pathways. So that is it. That's my part about AI, what it is, and of course, thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to answer all questions or dig deeper into particular discussions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Roman.